Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Hey, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
So listen, we're not going to give away spoilers, but here we are in our Barbie pink. We felt like we had to do an episode this week with, in light of the blockbuster movie that came out related to Barbie, the Barbie movie. And if you've not seen it, I have, and I'm just going to highly recommend. Maybe not so much for young preschoolers. And I know how challenging it is to get them to sit through a movie anyway. You're probably listening now if you have preschoolers of your own thinking, take them to a 2-hour movie with 20-minute previews. Like, what are you talking about? But, I think when I was in the theater, there were people there of all ages, elementary school, middle school, high school, adults, seniors. I mean, everybody was there. And it just tells you the impact that some things have, on society. It also, again, I'm not going to give away, but it had messages that I think are important for girls. So Allison and I sat down and said, let's do, in honor of this movie and my personal love of Barbies, let's do an episode related to something for girls, right? Something that maybe the girls we work with and are raising need to know and hear and experience. So while, like I said, we're not going to tell you plot points of the movie, we are going to dedicate this episode to the young girls out there who likely will not be seeing this movie until they get older anyway.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I could say about girls and society, I think. It's sort of like, I feel like we've come a distance since maybe the women's movement of the 1960s.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are still things and messages that girls get that are so antiquated and so biased that we really need to think about how we can combat that when they're very young and their brains are forming and their ideas about the world and about themselves are forming, right? In those early childhood years. By the time we sit children down in middle school and high school and talk to them about some of the things they face, some of society's expectations of girls and women that still, though it baffles me, stereotypes that still exist for how girls should act and behave. By the time we sit them down in middle school and say things to them like, no, you should just be you and don't follow the crowd and don't give into that pressure. It's almost too late because they got messages young, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those messages get ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And it is too late because I feel like that's something I still struggle with and I'm old. Okay. Like I still see the therapist and every week the therapist says, Allison, because you are enough. Just being you is enough. You are enough. You are a beautiful being. You are enough. And I'm old and I still have to be told that. And I'm getting better, but I feel like it's undoing like 30, 40 years of being told, no, you're not good enough. You're not that. No, don't do that. You can't be that way. This isn't what ladies act like. I've been told that many times. Okay. So like,
this is what ladies act like.
This is what, because, in my personal life, Cindy knows I swear a lot. Okay. It's just part of my normal way of talking. And I have been told that's not very ladylike to say that, and like, well, this lady does it. And I also was one that I never played sports, but I really enjoy watching sports. So I know a lot about NFL football and like things like that. And I always loved it. And everybody's like, that's not what girls like to do. I'm like, well, it's what I like to do. So, but then it made me feel like I wasn't girl enough. I wasn't what a girl's supposed to be, but I am a girl, I am a woman and I enjoy those things. So what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that, but people still will tell you that there is. You know?
You know, there are all these books out now, these children's books, maybe even titled "You Are Enough," right?
Yeah.
You are enough the way you are. You are enough with your likes and your dislikes, and your personality and your intelligence and your ambition. You know, you're enough with all that.
Yeah.
And then still, there are these messages out in our world where that negate things like those books that we may read to them and the things that we may say to them. And I just think we have to spend a lot more time instilling this message. You know, I don't know. It baffles me that we still have this idea of who girls should be versus boys and who women should be versus men. And that we still, so many of us deal with stigma related to our own personalities. You know, I run my own business related to early childhood education. I'm an ambitious person. I'm a strong-willed person. I will stand for what I think and what I think should be done. And that's not always perceived well by people. You know, if I often think, this is what I often think, if a man were saying the same things and doing the same things, people would admire it.
Yes.
When I do it, it's looked at a little sideways by some people simply because of my gender.
Yes, because I think you must hear things like, oh, you're so bossy, or you're too
pushy,
you're too pushy, or
opinionated. I get opinionated.
Or what a bitch kind of thing, right? Because but if a man did that, they'd be like, oh wow, look how strong he is.
Yeah.
You know, like, and why? Like, why can't you be a woman and stand up for yourself and be totally, wow, what a strong woman she is? You know what I mean?
Because
that's strong.
I think the messages to both boys and girls happen in early childhood. You know, boys need to see that too, that a girl in your class, in your preschool, who stands up for herself, who will look at you and put her hand up and say, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Is not being pushy. She is standing up for herself. But you won't see a whole lot of people saying that and complimenting that.
Right.
When it comes to girls doing it. You know, we also look at girls and we say things like, you know, you can grow up to be whatever you want to be. And to some extent that's true. And then at the same time, there are these glass ceilings that women are constantly having to still break through. And there's still, you know, there's still places and spaces where pay is not equal.
Right.
And, you know, even just look at early childhood education as a profession, or any educational profession and the salary rates. Just take a look at that.
Because it's a women-dominated field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And look at the fields that are male-dominated. They're soaring salaries, you know. And if I feel like if education had more men in it, then maybe it would be more equal pay. But it's not. Like, I don't.
Right.
I don't understand that either. Like.
So how do we do this then? So we have these books for young girls and we read to them about You're Enough and we talk about You're Enough. But then there's this, this sort of, I think that there's this bias that so many people have that they're not even aware of. So our reaction to girls behaving a certain way is different than if a boy behaved exactly the same way in our preschools and at home. And, you know, our reactions are different. And it may not be as extreme as it was when I was a child. You know, when I was a child, girls were handed dolls and not sports equipment.
Yes.
Right? Girls were not handed blocks to play with. I can tell you that. We were handed dolls and really encouraged to play like we were mommy. We were handed Barbie dolls. You know, we weren't handed a lot of the same things. And I think part of it has to do with girls feeling, in the early childhood years in preschool, feeling open and free to select whatever it is they want to play with without any kind of critique or nonverbal expression from anybody, or, I think that we also have to make sure that the boys understand that, I've heard preschool boys, people are probably wondering, what do you mean the boys? I've heard preschool age boys turn to girls and say, girls don't play with that, or girls don't play like that. I've heard it, and it's not so long ago.
Yeah.
So, we have to teach them that about equity and equality at very young ages. Otherwise, we're going to just continue to perpetuate this girls do this and don't do that, and boys do this and don't do that, and never the twain shall meet. And by the way, your personality can't be strong if you're a girl, because that's a boy's trait. We don't want that anymore.
Right. And I also think, like, being raised as the person who was handed it all and say, hey, go pretend to be a mommy. And now I'm older and I'm not a mommy. Okay. I'm a wonderful doggy mommy, but I do not have children of my own. And it makes me feel like I failed somehow, because I was told from a very young age, oh, you'll grow up and you'll get married, and you'll grow up and you'll be a mommy one day. And here you go. Here's the doll to practice on. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, wait, like, am I not being a woman because I'm not a mom? You know what I mean? Because I hear that sometimes, and that's not, no, I'm still a woman. I'm still enough just because I do not have children. I'm still enough, even though I'm not married, but I think like at a young age, I was told, like, you'll grow up and this is what's going to happen. This is how the world works. And that's not how the world works anymore. Like, I think in my mom's generation, you got married when you were 20, so you did. And that's the way it was. And I was raised by a woman who thinks the world is like that. And it's not like that. So there was a portion of my adulthood where I was like, I failed. I'm a failure because I don't have all those things that women should have. But like, one of my friends told me once, and she might be listening, so hi, she goes, there's no one way to have a life. There is no one way to have a life. And just because you're not married doesn't mean you're not going to be. And just because it happened when you're older does not mean your life is invalid, So, and I think that's true. There is no one way to be a girl. There is no one way to be a woman.
I think girls today get a lot more and better messages about having careers than years ago, right? So they grow up knowing today that, you can have a career, we're going to pick a career that matches you. We grow up knowing female doctors and lawyers, and we grow up knowing all professionals of all types who are female. So I think girls today have a better idea. We have female politicians, we have female everything. So I think girls today, well, maybe except president, but we have girls today who grow up knowing, I'm probably going to grow up and have a career of some kind, which is great. Good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in that career, you should feel comfortable voicing your point of view, reaching ambitiously for things, knowing that there are times when you have to firmly stand for yourself and not feel like you have to shrink. Girls need to know that in that career that you're someday going to have, and whether you're a parent or not, whatever, you just can't shrink yourself. And maybe that's the message that I wish would go out to young girls. Yes, you are enough the way you are. P.S. Don't shrink yourself into nothingness while you're doing that.
I think there is this, like, I don't know, people assume that women and girls should shrink themselves so that others don't feel uncomfortable. And it's like, no, you feeling uncomfortable, that's on you, dude. Okay, not on me. Like, I shouldn't have to shrink myself so that you feel comfortable, because now I shrunk myself and now I'm uncomfortable because I'm not being me. So the issue you have is your issue to figure out. I should not have to shrink myself so that you feel better.
So how do you support girls in an early childhood classroom to not shrink themselves? How do you support that?
See, I think it's a lot of surrounding them with good models too, right? I mean,
and we don't know, different cultures there are some cultures that have very strong gender roles, and they would not at home see the genders having as many similarities as accepted as in other homes, and that's cultural. And so we sort of put that aside. In our early childhood classrooms, we can help children to have a voice and have them know that we respect their voice. And when they're standing up for themselves or they're asserting themselves, we need to, I think, in our early childhood classrooms, we need to support that. When the children do it, we need to teach them how to do it by giving them the words to say and when to say them. You know, we have to say to them, you need to come with me, so that we can tell that child to stop together. Not the teacher turning around and saying, stop doing that with her, but teaching the child how to go over and say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I need you to stop. Teaching them to say it, and teaching them that it's a really good thing to say it on their own.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be depending on anybody else to say it. I find it so discouraging when I'm in programs and I'll hear people say things to girls, like you said, like, you know, that wasn't very ladylike, or girls don't talk like that, or, you know, we need to stop all that kind of generational leftover nonsense and let these girls know they're enough. They can stand for themselves. They can assert themselves. And then we need to teach all of society around them, which would be the other children in the class, that it's okay and it's good. And, you know, if you come from a culture where girls being assertive is not of value in your culture, just understand that children can learn to behave different ways in different places. They can learn what's appropriate with their family and what might be appropriate in a setting, social setting with other people, or a work setting with other people, where they have to be able to stand for themselves. They can learn that. You know, there's a certain way that we behave, even as an adult. There's often a certain way we behave with our parents is different than we behave with our friends. And they will figure that out. You know, and I look at some people, there are some amazing people who have come out of more male-dominated cultures and do wonderful things in our society. And that had to have been in some way instilled in them when they were very young somewhere. Right? Somewhere, the strength, knowing that they are strong and that they can stand up and do things for themselves. If nothing else, I hope that this movie, which is really outrageously popular for a reason, I hope that it gives you all some food for thought. You know, over the course of my lifetime, folks, Barbie went from just regular old Barbie to being a doll who has careers. When I look in the stores, she has careers now. She does all sorts of things. Right? She even can fly to space. She can do anything when you look at the Barbie materials now. And for some reason, our dolls have evolved in that way, but not so much many of the human beings who use them.
That is true.
I hope that this movie gives us all a lot of food for thought about our reactions to young girls because of what was ingrained in us, and then how we guide them to be strong human beings. Okay, folks. If you have any comments about things you've heard said to girls or something you want to say, please contact us. You can go to howpreschoolteachersdoit.com and send our contact form. You can also go ahead and check out everything else we have on that site. And you can find us on Facebook, the How Preschool Teachers Do It Facebook page. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.